You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
Since we're just really in our pandemic days, even more so than we ever have been, you know, you get into new habits and stuff being at home alone. So generally, I like to shower in the morning. But then some days I'm like, it's raining. So I'm going to not shower today, but I'll have a bath later. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I've got into my head now that I should not be having a shower and a bath. We don't have any water restrictions at all. But am I the only person doing this kind of weird rationing? Because I guess I'm at home, so I can say I don't need to shower right now, but I still feel weird not showering at work.
Wait.
Even though I'm only working from home.
I understand what you mean. Like your work is now at your home and showering at your work. I see.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like I haven't had a bathtub situation that's been really great. Like baths in my home are just terrible, so I've been sort of like sentenced to showers since I moved in here 11 years ago. And I love baths. I miss them. But when I do have a bath, what I like to do at the end, because one time my grandfather said to me, "How can you and your my grandma and I both really loved baths, and we would sit there for like an hour and a half, like not in the same bath, but which would be adorable, but but like, you know, it would be an hour and a half like adventure while you're sitting in the, you know, just like soaking in the bathtub." And my grandfather pointed out one time that it was like just soaking in your own filth, basically, like your own dirty water for an hour and a half.
I've heard that before, but
I know. But it stuck in my head. So when I got older, I sort of like, I don't know, that thought kind of haunted me a little bit. And because I also can't wash my hair in a bath situation, I need like a shower. I will have a bath and then shower.
I've done that. If you have to wash your hair, because I'm not washing my hair in my filth. I do know about that. That's exactly. But also because I like to put a bath salts in or some kind of thing.
Whenever you go to public baths, like I've been to ones in Iceland and Japan, you have to take a shower.
Yeah, you do. Get the filth off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that public bathing idea. Like I have been to a lot of Korean spas, especially in Los Angeles, where my friend and I are like obsessed with spas. No matter where we go, we find spas. And
Korean spas are the best.
They are the best. There is no doubt. And they have one here in Coquitlam. That's really great.
JJ.
Yeah. Been there several times. But the ones in LA are just top notch. They are so beautiful. And just that lingering around in warm or hot water, chatting. And some of them you're supposed to be quiet, but not some of the other ones I went to. And how the social activity of it. Well, especially the one in Coquitlam where you can go into, after you've done your bathing, you go into like those hot rooms with the salts and the...
Yeah.
And little sauna rooms and stuff.
Yeah, what I love the best is when you're totally finished and you're sitting in there kind of like, it's almost like hospital scrubs they give you to wear.
Yeah.
And you go out into the finished like area after you finish bathing, and it's like a bunch of easy chairs and TVs mounted on the ceiling showing Korean dramas, and you can order...
I love that part. And then you can get food down the hall.
Yeah, you can order food like a bucket of fried chicken.
Yeah, fried chicken. Yeah, I mean, honestly, making bathing social is a very smart thing. Like, I love it. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously I don't do it at my own home. Be strange.
No, but it's pretty cool. Like when we went to the hot, like basically like public outdoor hot springs / baths in Orense, Spain, and it was so fun and so fantastic. And like we went to there. They have a lot of free ones along this sort of like corridor outside. It's like as if you're like in Vancouver, it would be a bike path throughout the city, but in Orense, Spain, it's a walking path and a series of like outdoor thermal springs. And so most of them are free, but they have like a couple where you can like pay €4 and have an entire like spa sort of like cycle.
The scrubbing
where
down thing?
No, they don't do scrubbing, but you can go to a series of different like thermal pools inside, and they've got like a cold one, but a bunch of hot ones, tepid ones, and they've got like a waterfall function that is supposed to like sort of like scrub you basically. Super cool, and I love it so much.
There's one here in Whistler too, the Scandia
the
Spa.
Scandinavian, yeah.
And I've been to that, but that
it's
you
more
can't
than
talk
€4. It's also very expensive, right?
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Well, the treatments are more expensive. Just hanging out in the various pools, they're not. That's not expensive, but I definitely like having a treatment, a scrub. Mm-hmm. The Korean spas with the scrubs and the yogurt or whatever's.
The most amazing one I've ever been to is in Hakone, Japan. It's called Unisun, and it's like a theme park. You buy like a day pass, and they have all these different themed baths. Like there's one that's red wine, so you're like sitting in this huge wine glass with a bottle, like red water is coming out of the bottle pouring onto you. There's like a green tea one. There's like a ramen one where there's like chopsticks holding noodles above you and you're sitting in like soup colored water. It was so amazing.
Oh my. Well, my friend and I were planning a trip to Finland just to do spas.
Oh, nice.
Because apparently they have one sauna per person in all of Finland. Like that's the ratio.
Yeah, are you going to do the cold plunge as well as the hot, like you go from hot into like the freezing water and then back out?
Yeah, but I don't find that so interesting. I mean, I did that in Whistler when there's a hot tub, right? You're sitting there for so long and then you get out and roll in the snow and get back in. So, I mean.
But this is like plunging into like freezing water. Like this is like dig a hole for your ice fishing, but also jump in and then get back out and go running back to the sauna.
I like to follow the traditions, you know?
I've seen it at Jericho. Somebody has a mobile Scandinavian spa, like sits on the back of like his truck or something, and he parks at Jericho, and like him and his friends run to the beach and dive into the water and then come back and sit in the sauna.
Wow.
That is indulgent. How do you get? I guess anyone can rent those things. Because I went to a party once and my friend rented a hot tub, which I thought was the weirdest thing ever. I got in, of course. I love a hot tub.
Wow.
But I don't last as long. The idea of it is almost better for me because I can't really last. Like you said, you could be in the bath for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Oh, I can't do that.
No, I
have to be reading. I can't just like lay there.
No, even when I read, I just get too hot, and I actually enjoy the feeling of after the bath when you're just kind of laying there all warm in a robe, you know, just reading, and you just feel clean and happy and that kind of thing. But an hour and a half, I can't do.
I mean, I haven't done it in a long time, but like I think I could still do an hour. But the trick is like the bath water gets cold, and then you have to like either run a tiny hot stream and not stick your toe under it by accident, or drain all the water and then do a rerun.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
Wow.
No, the trick I've found, because I tend to feel bad that I don't stay in the bath long enough, is I get in as the water's going in.
Yep, that's good.
So then I can keep the temperature right as well, instead of just sticking my foot in a boiling hot thing.
Yeah.
I sit in it and then I enjoy the cold as the water comes up around me.
Nice.
That's
very nice.
That, you know, that's a little bit more about me. That's what that is. Just...
As I read the synopsis out loud to my grandmother and Carlos, and heard that there was a wild grandma figure that comes to live with a young family, we all lit up and were like, "This is great! Bring it on!" She gambles and swears. Yep, these are our people. And my God, did I love this movie so much.
Minari.
Yes.
Did we say it?
Thank you. No.
I don't remember saying it. So
No, I didn't say it.
Oh.
It's just normally that's where like we then like say our names, and then we like say, and this is where we're going to talk about
Right.
Minari. Anyway, but that's
Okay.
cool. I
Yeah.
like this. This is great. I want people to see how the sausage is made on this podcast. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And yes, we're talking about Minari. I'm so glad we're talking about this movie.
I am too, and I'm glad I saw it because I think there was part of me, with the Oscars coming up, we like to try and see the films. And I think people have noted that this year the Oscars are always serious. It's very, very, very rarely that you will see a comedy, get nominated for a Best Picture or an actor or anything like that. So I knew it'd be very serious, but part of me was very like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a heavy situation to go through. Although it was also quite beautiful and life affirming and lots of other great things.
And funny.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I expected. Like I just expected it to be really good because it's gotten such a great buzz about it, but I didn't expect it to be so beautiful to look at, and it's such a gentle story in many different ways. And yeah, I was just totally blown away by this movie. I loved it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I was, but like I said, I was a bit nervous. Pandemic times, I'm all like, oh look, there's another season of Community for me. Yay. I've found it particularly, I've had to like, just now, even in my efforts to read 50 books this year, that is because I read nothing last year, like nothing. Like I really let my brain go into neutral and just float there. And come this year, I'm like, no, we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're going to have to put some stuff in there. We're going to have to work at this. So I was a little bit nervous, but and that's just a heads up for everyone else, because there might be a lot of people feeling that same sort of way. And I think you can go into it knowing that, yes, there's hardships and struggles, but there's also a lot of beauty and joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I can read a little bit about the background.
Okay.
Minari is a 2020 American drama film written and directed by Lee Isaac Chung. It stars Steve Yeun, Han Ye-ri, Alan Kim, Noel Kate Cho, Yoon Yo-jung, and Will Patton. A semi-autobiographical take on Chung's upbringing, the plot follows a family of South Korean immigrants who try to make it in the rural United States during the 1980s. So Minari had its world premiere at Sundance Film Festival in January 2020, and I feel like I have been hearing about how great this movie is since exactly that moment. It won both the U.S. Dramatic Grand Jury Prize and the U.S. Dramatic Audience Award. It's earned 6 nominations at the 93rd Academy Awards, coming up in just a few weeks, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Supporting Actress.
Now, I will give the synopsis. It is a classic immigrant story with specific, often unique new details. A Korean-American family headed by Father Jacob and Mother Monica come from Korea in the 1980s and spent time in California working as chicken sexers, which means they separate baby chicks by gender. Now they have moved with their 2 American-born children, a serious and mature girl named Anne and a 6-year-old boy named David, hoping to start a 50-acre farm in a small Arkansas town. And that is from Matt Zoller, cites from Roger Ebert. And I guess that, when you read that, I can see how some people might be, oh my God, that sounds a lot overwhelming. But as we said, lots of beauty and joy and all kinds of things go on there.
Well, and it's like, I think it's a very, I think it's a film with like just so much heart and a lot of space for like sort of the internals of, the challenges within a family of 2 people who have to, who meet and fall in love, and then the difficulty of like immigrating, leaving behind your country, going to a new country, trying to make it, having 2 children. Like, we see the toll that this has taken on Monica and Jacob so clearly, like almost from the opening frames. And sort of that sets this, I think, like foundation for just everything else that follows, is that like, you know, this is a story about family, in as much as it's also a story of, you know, so many people, so many immigrants coming to America and sort of trying to figure out how to build the best life that they can, and like what that looks like. Particularly, I think like so many of us have no idea what it would really look like to go to very rural, very white middle America.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad to know it was semi-autobiographical too, because I was, you know, the townspeople, there was definitely some comments about race, but it wasn't, it wasn't consuming the story at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, the director, Lee Isaac Chung, I saw this interview where he talked about that, and he said it's like based on his experience and like growing up in Arkansas, and he didn't experience, you know, much overt racism, so it's accurate to like his personal life. And it's so interesting because like when you read about that, you read about like, oh, it's about a Korean American family moving to Arkansas. You kind of are expecting them to have a really rough time. But it kind of doesn't manifest in this story other than a couple of incidents.
Which aren't even really incidents. They're more just, and they were children and their stupid comments and kids, you know, just kind of brushed it off. So I thought that was, it was
interesting.
Yeah. Well, also it sounded like there were a lot of Korean people there already. I mean, when she came to work in the factory.
There are some, yeah.
Yeah, not like a whole lot, but there was definitely a understanding that there are other people, but they didn't hang out with them because they were an hour away. When you say small community, they were also way out in the middle of nowhere too, right? Living in a I guess you'd say a mobile home.
Yeah. With no water.
With no water. Oh my God. Like, well, and you see the tension of like the sort of the very, very hardcore religious helper played by Will Patton, who speaks in tongues and believes in exorcisms, who like the particular tension of the conversation, and what Jacob has to like hold in that moment when this guy is like, yeah, I was in Korea, and you know, there's this heavy loaded history that like suddenly sort of really pops up between them in this moment, and you have to sort of like, Jacob has to deal with this guy who, you know, you don't really know. he's a big white old guy who seems a little bit unhinged, who speaks in tongues and prays for him, and he ends up being like quite sort of like quote unquote harmless, you know, and sort of like helpful in his own way to Jacob, but like Jacob still has to like manage this person who wants to find some kind of like commonality between them because like he served in the military in Korea. Like it's like these ways that sort of like racism and race come up in the movie, I think are like really fascinating to watch how the director holds them and how he folds it into this story.
I also just found it, all the references about religion and Christianity in particular, very, very interesting. I thought all of I mean, we're just going to jump around with in spoilers. They're not even
There's going to be spoilers,
really.
Yeah, I don't
There's
think
going to be spoilers. But we've gone, you know, we hear his story about, you know, Jacob it's the American dream. This is me coming here, being able to show what I can do for my family. Obviously, we feel some ego in there because he was good at chicken sexing animals, which is, he wanted to do a lot more. But what sort of the movie to me kind of hinged on was this whole idea of who was he doing it for? And it really comes up in those pretty much toward the end when they're at the doctor's with their son, who has a medical condition in his heart. And they find out things are getting better, which is kind of a premonition the grandmother had about, you know, you just have to believe. And when he has decided, like Monica is saying, we've got to leave. This is no life. And then she looks at him and says, I've lost my faith in you.
Mhm.
And I know there are those moments where everybody also waits for, like, as soon as the grandmother said Minari, I went, oh, there's the title. But but it was like, as soon as she said that, the whole film kind of did a Jenga for me, where all the pieces fell into each other and what we were watching and what that meant to have faith in something or someone, and how she was realizing that he wasn't doing this for the right reasons, that he didn't have faith in this family. He didn't have a real faith in the surroundings, the people in his life. He'd kind of like almost distanced himself from them. And so that overarching theme in the movie, I thought is what really made it, kind of pop for me about that end scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, AJ, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, it reminded me of, it had my parents are immigrants, and thinking about that, like, why did they choose to move here? Like, because like people of our generation who were born here and are living here as adults, it's like you never had to make a decision where you want to move to a place to get a better life. And just, I don't know, I could really relate to his family being in this town, because it was like, when my parents came and they ended up in Tawasin in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was kind of like not unlike this story in that, I don't think they suffered any overt racism. But I'm sure that there were minor events that happened here and there, but it was like a nice place to live. People were nice to us. And there weren't that many Asians. Like, actually, my best friend was like the Korean family, like the daughter in the Korean family that lived down the street from us. And yeah, and I remember at those times, like in the 70s and early 80s, before, like Chinese goods are so easy to get now in Vancouver. Like it's easy to get anything you want. But back then it wasn't that easy. And I remember my grandparents and my mother would be so happy whenever, somebody sent us certain ingredients from China or something like that. Or, just that scene where her mother brings her, I think it's shrimp and
anchovies and chili powder. Yeah,
chili
yeah.
powder.
Yeah.
And she cries. And I'm like, oh yeah, I felt that, because it's like things that are impossible to get. And I'm sure like immigrants all over the world have like similar scenes in their lives where they've received stuff from home and just been like so overwhelmed.
That's yeah, I was thinking about that too, because my family came from Denmark and spoke no English at all. The family lore is that my grandmother learned to speak English fast just because she was working as a house cleaner. And so while she was cleaning other people's homes and doing all their ironing, she would watch soap operas. So she learned to speak English before my dad and my uncle and my grandfather. So my grandfather was an engineer. He got a job pretty quickly. But what's funny is there was a really big push of Danish people after the war. So in like the late 50s, early 60s, but not a huge lot, like 200,000, I think, or something, came to BC. And every year, when it's at Christmas, the only place to get all of the ingredients now, it's like shrunk. All of the people, they didn't repopulate, right? The more Danes did not come. So there was like this one Danish deli and one Danish bakery in Cloverdale. And so I go out there every Christmas to get all the ingredients for the dinner, which you can only get out there. And I stand in line with all of these people that are like me, so like the grandkids of the Danish family, and they don't speak a lot of Danish, and they're there picking up all this food, and they're still doing it. They don't know. Like, we're all talking like, I don't know why we do this. And they're like, I don't know why we're doing this still. Like, sometimes they don't even have any more family left, right? They have died. And so it always is around food. It's always around food. Whenever you think about immigrant experience, I find, that sense of wanting to keep those traditions and those food sources, like finding these weird items that nobody else has. And so that's the other thing that when I was watching this, I was really feeling that tension of, especially when you've got those two kids were born in California. They're like American kids, and they're really in that, they speak Korean, they speak English, but, already they're starting to feel that tension of where they're going to go with their lives, right? Where, how are they going to navigate this?
The obsession with Mountain Dew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not wanting to eat any of the Korean food, or when the grandma comes, she smells Korean. And the sister's going, you don't even know what that is. You've never even been. And so there's that tension of wanting to be in the new world and the old world is always such an interesting part of these kinds of stories, I find.
I really felt the story between David and his grandma when she comes to live with them, and just kind of not knowing what to do. Yeah, like I really felt that in my bones, because like when I was younger too, like my grandmas didn't speak much English, and so it was really like they spoke a dialect of Chinese called Hakka, and they spoke with my parents, but it's not popular amongst other Chinese people, and so it was really kind of just a language amongst like our family and our family friends that would get used. And I just remember like always not knowing what to do like with my grandparents, because they were so Chinese. Like and even like one clear memory I have is like trying to explain Halloween to them, because like they didn't live with us. They lived in their own house in Caristelle. And so we were never around on Halloween to explain to them what was going on. And like all of a sudden kids would just show up at their doorstep in costumes, and they would be like, I don't know what is going on now. And then like they'd phone my mom and ask her, and she'd explain it. But then of course, like it would be an entire another year until Halloween happened again, where they like totally forgot what this was about. But I remember my sister and I just being totally horrified, because like my grandfather at one time like kind of cottoned on to the fact it was Halloween, but he didn't have any candy, of course. And so he just he had this like Chinese candy that he kept around the house called Haw Flakes. And there's just like, I remember my sister and I hearing about this like the weekend after, when we went to visit them, at having dinner, and them telling us about it. And my sister and I were just like so embarrassed and horrified that this happened, and that like all the neighborhood kids got these strange like Chinese candies that they probably had no idea what to do with or what they were.
I have this clear memory when my parents had gone away for a month to Europe. My grandparents came to stay at the house and took care of my brother and I. It was a miserable month for all of us, because we did not want to spend a month pretending that we were, Danish children. We were Canadian children. And my grandma would make me these beautiful lunches, which is what she did, open face sandwiches to take to school. And she'd wrap them in wax paper. They were beautiful. But there was we ate a lot of liverwurst, liver pate, and salami, and fried onions, and pickles. And of course, at home, I loved those things, but she put them in my lunch to school. I was known for 2 years as the girl who brought dog food to school, because that's what the sandwich looks like. And you're in grade 4, and, you just don't go to school with a lot of foodies, who are intrigued by the different kinds of food throughout the world. So I had to come and tell her I can't take those sandwiches. And she was really hurt. And she's like, well, what can you take? And I'm like, I can take peanut butter and jam, and that is it. And she's like, yeah, but I make these beautiful. And it was I was so depressed, because I loved those things, but I was not willing to live with the humiliation of bringing my wax papered, covered, open face. Like, I'm not even joking. She would make 6 individual open face sandwiches for me, and put a note in my lunch that she loved me.
Oh my God.
Which also went over really well with the classmates.
Yeah.
So, it was, anyway, I just think there's just so much of that in this movie, is that tension and wanting to belong, but also at the same time wanting to keep your culture alive and, not turn your back on it. And that's such a huge tension. And I think that's why the immigrant stories are always so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, the other part of this movie that really, that I really got, emotional about, is just like watching parents sort of edge towards the brink of divorce, and like sort of like work, and this idea of like, I think Lisa, you touched on it before, but like when Jacob says that he started this thing and has to see it through, like he only sees this farm as that. He doesn't see his marriage or his family as that, which is sort of like a significant tell, which is why Monica is like, I'm done. Obviously, things change quite quickly with the
fire,
really devastating fire, and just sort of all together, like sort of when you really realize how something could end, and that brings people together sometimes, and for others it doesn't. Like, anyway, I just like, as like a child of separated parents, and they never divorced. That was the weird part about my parents, is they never divorced, but we did, like, we did have to like have the conversation about like where we wanted to go live. And so like when those two kids are having that conversation in front of the mirror, I didn't know that was a real open wound for me, but I was like, and sorry, I made that too loud a sound. But like just watching sort of how that all shakes out, and like watching two people who like do still sort of like, love each other, but like hardship has really gotten in the way, and just like the struggle to survive has really gotten in the way of that. I think like, I don't have kids, but I can't really imagine like sort of trying to care for a child with a potentially life-threatening illness as you're struggling to sort of make ends meet and build this new life in a brand new city in the middle of nowhere that's an hour away from a hospital, and Monica's the only one who cares about that. I think like, the character of Monica, she does, the actor does such incredible work with not quite as much I think, to like, her character doesn't get quite as fleshed out as Jacob, I don't think, but she does such an incredible job that Monica feels like very much still quite a central part of the film.
Well, she's in such an awkward position to be like, wanting to support her husband and his dream at the same time as take care of a family, and, and then have her mother there and make sure all of those things are fixed. And what a tell too, when one of the first things she does is build a swing for the kids.
I know.
So she
God,
can,
so
they can go outside and have something to play on. And, Jacob is so single focused. But yeah, the whole movie really is just all about faith, right? It's about the faith of being an immigrant family, that we're going to be able to do this. And then farming is such faith that the conditions are going to be right. And and there's so much, like, if you to go off on different metaphors, that like the Jacob wasn't seeing all the tending he was doing to this farm was not the same tending he was doing to his own family, because farming takes all that same energy. You're checking on those plants all the time. You're making sure they're watered. You're making sure they've got fertilizer and all of those things. And how he was at first also not wanting to believe Paul, the helper, Paul, no, this is how you plant things. And he was like suspicious, right? Like maybe, so that there was this mistrust of his as well, that wasn't going to help go through all of this, when you can't see the people are trying to help you. The people are on your side and want you to succeed. And everyone did, but he was so angry and so single focused that he just let everything else fall apart. And just that, and I think sadly, we've all been conditioned to be very suspicious of some of these things that happen at churches and in the South. And here was this whole community being so supportive of this family and wanting to help and do whatever they could. And it was all good natured, but he was still a little bit suspicious until they had to send the kids off to have those very uncomfortable sleepovers.
Oh my God, that sleepover. That's when I realized that like the kid, like David had been totally unsupervised all night with his friend, like, cause that kid's dad was out there doing like God only knows what, but oh God. Anyway, it was brutal. I mean, like, I think of Jacob, I think, you know, I think he is angry, but I also think he's just like, he's really scared, you know, like there's just so much riding on him.
Yeah.
And he's worked for so long. And like, I think he says that he did that job for like 10 years. They've got like a 9-year-old kid and a 6-year-old kid. And like, they'd saved this money, and the bank wants to just give them loans that they probably can't really afford. And like, it's, you know, it's so precarious, like, and they've got nothing to fall back on, you know, except like grandma comes then, and she's helpful, and she brings like a little bit of money, but she also, like, oh my God, my heart broke when she had a stroke. And and then
she was so vibrant. It was so cruel to see somebody who was enjoying life. So I don't want to make you cry again, but
no, it's okay. I'm fine.
She was just such a joyous character and having such a great time. And to see her felled by this was so heartbreaking. And then wanting to stay youthful and feel that she could still help out. But man, oh man, when you figured out I don't know how all of you felt when I saw her hauling out that garbage, and I thought, don't start the fire. Don't start there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the fire is this constant threat throughout, like, leading up to it. But it still actually kind of blindsided me that, like, that it came back in such a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. It's like Southern Gothic. There's, you know, like this family. Yeah, I know. Like hardships, like indignity, religion, and like humor, and in some like dark places. And you know, it's about like humans having to struggle when terrible things happen to them. Like I mean, we're totally spoiling the movie's ending, but like the movie kind of just like drifts to an end after this catastrophic event happens to them. And you know, that's like a classic Southern Gothic story, is just like these kind of tragic things happening to you, but you just still have to carry on in your life, and you still have to it's just another day. You wake up and it's just another day.
Yeah. Can definitely.
Can we talk about just how great Yoon Jung is? Like, as an actor, like, oh my God. Yeah. The moment she comes on screen is just, what a gift. Like, I love her so much.
I have to admit, I hadn't heard of her before this movie, and I looked up her Wikipedia, and she's apparently referred to often as the Meryl Streep of South Korea.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. I would like to see some of her other roles then, and maybe I have. I've seen quite a few Korean films. So, but yeah, what a part. The transformation of her getting to this home, you know, like when you saw her in that sort of prim dress for the travel, and then all of a sudden she becomes who she is. And I loved how she would sit on the floor with her legs up watching wrestling and playing gambling, and just the joy she had. And like you could just see why Monica missed her mother so much. Like, what a presence. And then again, there's also those the discussion about the Korean War, and I thought that was interesting, that the explanation that she didn't have a sibling, Monica didn't, because her father died. And so there was that aspect, like when you were saying, when at the beginning, when Jacob is meeting that man who was fighting there, you know, that was a big, obviously, like, hard to just go, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, that's, holding that moment is just, and I mean, like, all of that sort of is there, like this sort of, you know, it informs everyone's backstories in so many different ways. But when we see, like, you know, when we see sort of like Grandma and David bonding and like working their way towards each other, like, obviously he resents sharing a room with her. He resents that, like, there's this other person who is maybe not gonna make things better between his parents because, you know, naturally she is a reminder of who they used to be, and also naturally going to be on her daughter's side in a lot of situations. But like, as they work their way towards each other, and like like the first time that you really see them bond, and you see like when they go and they like go down to the river, and she encourages him to like run a little with her, and like just I don't know, all of that is so beautiful and it's so great, and I just and then it's sort of taken away from us so quickly. Like, I mean, just the devastation when David is so angry that like she's had this stroke and is causing, and now there's more fighting happening between his parents because there's this additional stressor, you know, and he's just grieving, but he doesn't know what to do with it because he's 6. And so of course you get angry because you can't make sense of anything else, you know. It's heartbreaking.
And you know how she makes him kind of an herbal drink to drink to help for his health?
Yeah.
That reminded me of my cousin when we were growing up. My cousin was like, he was the oldest boy in the family. So my grandmother wanted him to grow really tall. And so she would make this herbal drink for him, like to drink all the time, because it apparently would help him grow. And it apparently was disgusting and he hated drinking it. And it was just like that exact struggle in our family. Like,
but he is now 6'7".
Yeah, he did grow really tall. So.
Wow. And I mean, there was an implication that whatever was in that tincture was also fixed his heart, because the doctor said, whatever you're doing, don't change it. Keep doing that, right?
Yeah. That, oh my God, when I just loved the prank moment when he like is such a little scoundrel, that kid, little rascal, when he like pees in the bowl and then she like drinks it, and then it was so funny and awful. But just like when Jacob is gonna discipline him, like just the framing of those shots.
I noticed that.
And she's saying like, why would you hit a little sweet boy? And she's on his side and she's like, so what? I drank a little pee, no big deal. And then like David goes outside and he's like looking and examining like the sticks and stuff. And then he comes back in with this like tiny like I don't know, wheat like
stock or something,
wheat stock or something, and she's so excited that he's so clever and so funny, and it just diffuses all of the tension to a certain extent. It's God, what a beautiful scene. I just think it's so
I think I'm trying to guess all the places you cried, but I'm gonna guess I'm gonna guess little David running toward his grandmother, that scene, his little
devastated. I was a sopping mess for like the last 10 minutes of the film, maybe the last 15, and then continued to cry for a good 5 to 10 minutes after the credits were done.
Yeah.
I was just so moved. And also it was kind of special to me that my grandma got to watch with us, because normally her hearing would be so bad that and like her eyesight is she's both legally blind and pretty deaf, and so normally those two things would not really permit her to watch a film with subtitles. However, our TV, we can make like the subtitles, we can make kind of like on the bigger side, and she can sit really close to it, so she was able to read all the subtitles and watch this movie with us. And like the first thing that she said after it was over was like, oh my God, that didn't feel like 2 hours at all. Are you sure it was 2 hours? Tell me again.
Wow, yeah.
You know, and she loved it so much. And I just loved it so much too. And like, I mean, she's much more stoic than I am, but I was just, and especially because like we had, sorry, this is maybe too much, again, also much information, but earlier that day we had no, it's fine. Earlier that day we had like a check-in with her doctor, and her doctor ended the call by being like, so, you know, I want to make sure that your like end of life plans are still, and she made us go through all of Graham's end of life plans, which, I mean, yes, everyone should do this and it's very important, and like everyone should have an end of life plan. But I just, I was already like, you guys, it's been an emotional week. I was already like a little bit fragile. You tell me end of life plan and my grandma, and I immediately burst into tears. And then watching this movie like later that night.
Yeah.
So many feelings. See,
Oh,
it's
gosh,
good
yeah.
that it's good that I cried before we even started recording, because I haven't broken down once.
The point where I burst into tears or was at the end when after she sets the accidental fire and then she starts walking down the road and the two kids run after
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
for me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't handle that.
Little David, and it was just so hard. This is the only time he'd really run, and he knew he could. And those little legs of his. Oh my gosh.
Alan Kim is so amazing in this movie. It's no wonder
Oh.
he's winning all these prizes. Like,
Oh my
Yeah.
god, we watched the video after of him accepting his is it the SAG award that he won for like best young actor or whatever? And it's the sweetest video in the whole world of just like him giving his acceptance speech and then like just crumbling into tears as he thanks like his family and like talks about how he hopes he gets to do this again. Because like, I mean, this is the other thing, like, you know, we've been talking a lot in the last like while about like, you know, representation on the screen and Asian American representation, representation of Asian Americans behind the cameras and like in different positions of power and like getting movies made. I mean, this kid is only 8 years old and he already knows that, you know, he already knows that his is not a face that is like as prominently featured in the world back to him. Like he doesn't see his reflection. He doesn't see himself represented that much on screens. And I just like, I don't know.
I'll watch that.
That is crushing.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
when he received the Critics' Choice Award for Best
Critics'
Young Actor.
Choice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Critics' Choice.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll look that
I'll
up.
link to it on our website.
Yeah, no, he was, and just that little run he did, and I just love the sort of the symmetry too of at the beginning when they arrive at the house and the dad says, "We'll all sleep on the floor,"
Yeah. And then they're on the floor again.
and then they're on the floor at the end, and you feel like he needed to see that because then we see him with the divining rod, and he's like, okay, like,
I'll get water.
no, I'll
No, but truly, I'll actually like invest in getting like, proper water.
And I'll see, you know, that you have to have some faith. You have to trust some people. You have to, you know, work harder at this, not just be single-minded. It's not just about you. And, you know, because she was out there with him too, right? And the time before when they were getting the water, she wasn't there.
Yeah, seeing them together at the end and like seeing how that like this small transformation in just their approach to everything, like and what that has to look like it's really powerful. AG, you were talking about like the sort of the Southern Gothic kind of style ending as well, of just like how you have this sort of tragedy and then you see that people have to continue on and like work through tragedy and stuff. And like I like that as a style of ending to a film. Like it's not like we don't know for sure what happens with them. We don't know for sure what happens with Grandma. You know, we feel her devastation at sort of what has transpired and her own devastation at what she has lost, like in her you know, in her autonomy and in her agency, like after her stroke. But we also see like that, you know, they are still all together in their little house, even if it's not perfect. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that they're all of a sudden the family unit became more important than everything else. And then there was the dinner with Paul was there as well. And you said, you're our first guest. So that sense of how we're going to be bringing in some other people into this and we're not going to be quite so isolated.
Yeah. What I really loved a lot about this movie is that it's so specific to a certain experience of growing up in Arkansas that, you know, like Asian American films have kind of reached this point where they can tell these stories now that are like super specific and they don't have to like speak for all Asian Americans' experience. It's, you know, it's just like one family's experience. And I'm glad that Asian American film has and storytelling has kind of reached that point.
Yeah, and to tell an important story from a very, like, when you think about the synopsis, it's very unique. It's very niche, right? Like a specific time, like with the 80s and in Arkansas, and in the summer, and yeah, I think it just gave you a whole snapshot of a whole other life that was quite hard. Like that farming, you gotta really love farming. I rely on farming because I love vegetables, but
farming is so hard. Oh my God.
It's
so hard. Oh my gosh. I mean, I might get up in the morning and go, oh, another day of rain. And they're like, well, there go the crops. That's that.
I remember once we were on a road trip and we were driving through Kansas on the 4th of July. We were driving past all these farms at like dusk where the farmers were still out in the fields, driving their tractors, doing their, because it was like, I guess they were harvesting stuff, but it's just like, it just was this like picture of, like farming is this 24/7, you never get a break, working 7 days a week. And yeah, I've never forgotten that.
No, you got to really love that. You got to really feel it in your bones that you need to do this. And for a while, it looked like he did definitely, there was a lot of crop there. There was a lot of food, and so he was doing a good job. And I don't know anything about soil, but sure looked nice when he picked it up. I mean,
I also, can I just talk briefly about my love for Steve Yeun?
Because you watched The Walking Dead, didn't you?
I did watch the first season of The Walking Dead, and he was my favorite part of it. And then when I heard that he was murdered in such a vicious, awful way, I was very angry. Spoiler alert, I guess, for anybody who didn't watch a show that's, been over for a while. But I also, weirdly, I mean, I've loved him in lots of different things over the years, but like most recently, I really loved his voice work in Tuca and Birdie. I thought he was just such a sweet dream of a character in Tuca and Birdie. But anyway, I just adore him so much. And AG, you did an excerpt from a piece by Jane Hugh at The Ringer, and I don't know if you want to share it or if you want to read it, but like. Since you also responded to it within the text, maybe you should read it because I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, there was a quote from The Ringer, as you said, written by Jane Hu. It says, in truth, Chung's anxiety around how to portray his Asian American story in a way that doesn't play into a preemptively scripted discourse around immigrant ethnicity might be the most Asian American thing about Minari. And it's just like, yeah, it kind of goes on to talk about that. And then it quotes Steve Yeun saying, sometimes I wonder if the Asian American experience is what it's like when you're thinking about everyone else, but nobody else is thinking about you. And like, that just like, it was like a truth bomb that just like dropped right on me when I read that. I was like, wow. That's some like truth telling right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got in your notes here, you got, whoa, ouch. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I meant by this story being allowed to just be a story and not having to answer to like speaking for all Asian Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a wonder. So
it is. Yeah. So do we think that it's gonna win Best Film at the Oscars?
I'm thinking it's going to be Nomadland myself, but
yeah. I mean, it's a bit of an underdog, I think, pick. But I haven't seen, Lisa, have you seen The Sound of Metal?
No, and that's my next one I want to see. I mean, technically he's a punk rock drummer, but yeah, okay, we'll call it The Sound of Metal. But no, I am definitely intrigued to see that one. And I think a lot of these films are quite easy to watch too. I mean, we had to rent this one. But I think The Trial of the Chicago 7, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank are all on Netflix. And I think The Sound of Metal is on Amazon, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's on either.
It's on something.
Yeah.
Promising Young Woman, I think, is on Amazon too.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's a.
But
so
Nomadland is not streaming. You have to rent Nomadland.
Yeah. Has anyone seen that?
I have not yet.
No,
No.
I want
That's
to.
my guess. That's my guess for the win this year. But
I have not seen any of the nominated films, and except now Minari.
But we'll be doing our Oscar episode next week, right?
yeah. So we
Yeah,
got some
I was
film
just like,
viewing
I'll
to
be
watch.
like deeply underinformed, but like that's why we're gonna count on hopefully Dorothy's joining us because I haven't sent that email to ask her, but hopefully she is.
Well, maybe she'll
So-
hear this and be what?
Yeah.
It's a standing date. Come on. She can do that.
We
Yeah,
booked her last year.
Yeah. What else does she think she's doing?
Standing.
So does Minari pop?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Do yourself a favor to watch
Yeah, I would highly encourage you to rent it. It's,
Yeah.
It's excellent.
it. Agreed.
It's fantastic, and yeah, you will not be disappointed. It's great. So we love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. And AG, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm going to continue on our theme of Asian grandmas. I'm going to recommend a movie called Lucky Grandma. It's on Crave right now, and it's directed by Stacey Seeley and stars Tsai Chin, who is from the Joy Luck Club. But she is amazing in this story of a Chinese grandma who goes to the casino and somehow gets tangled up in like a fight between like in this gang war in New York Chinatown.
I'm in. This
Is it a comedy? Is it a comedy or is it?
It's like a dark comedy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect.
Sounds amazing.
It's
I love it.
it's amazing. It's so great. Yeah, highly recommend it.
Awesome. And Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, so I just started reading this book that I was in my local bookstore and they had this under picks from the staff. And so I got it. It's called Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness by Susanna, I think I'm saying this right, Cahalan. And so she is a young journalist working for the New York Post. This was a couple of years ago. It's a true story about her. And she ended up with this extremely unusual condition that affected her brain. But I'm in the part where it's just her behavior is so completely erratic and she keeps going in for tests and nobody can figure out what is happening to her. Eventually they did diagnose something and she does get better. But the book is her recounting this month journey of them trying to figure it out. And she doesn't barely remember almost any of this month. And so she's had to go to her boyfriend, to her parents, and other people to try and piece together what this month of her life looked like and why it was so hard to diagnose her.
Oh, wow.
So it says it looks like it's going to be a movie as well. And she's a really great writer. She worked as an investigative reporter for the New York Post for the past 10 years. But she's had a lot of other writing credits here. And yeah, it's quite good. I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. I am going to recommend a graphic novel. It is the debut graphic novel by Lee Lai. It's called Stone Fruit, and I'm gonna read like the back because I think that's like the best way to sort of share what this is about. A debut graphic novel that paints a compassionate and unflinching portrait of the love shared among three women and the child they all adore. So, at turns tender and exhilarating, Braun and Ray's love for each other and the delight they take in their role as the fun weirdo aunties to Ray's niece, Nessie, is an oasis from their fraught family ties. But when their comfortable couplehood bursts, they must learn how to face the real world without their most intimate life partner. And amid the emotional fallout, each finds an opportunity to rekindle lapsed connections with their siblings and grapple with their personal identity. Rendered with a rare sensitivity and grace by debut cartoonist Lee Lai, Stone Fruit reveals how painful it can be to open up to your loved ones and how fulfilling it is to be finally understood for who you are.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love it. And I'm lucky I get to interview the Lee Lai, the cartoonist and author, in a couple days, and I'm really excited about this book.
Well, lots of good recommendations for everybody.
So many good recommendations. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for hanging out with us online on our various social channels. You could also email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. You could also rate and review us 5 stars.
5 stars. And as I always like to segue, our 5-star general here is Andrea Gin, producer,
me.
co-host, and just stars above everybody, and pulling this all together and watching movies with us and just being our pal, and not, maybe you can overshare some more next week with us.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.